the Employment Development Department, as we call it, the EDD, Employment and Training Pathways Program, informational webinar for program year 2025 through 26, or as we're going to call it moving forward, ETPP, program year 25-26. This is presented by the EDD's Grants and Solicitation Unit, or the GSU as we call it. Due to the volume of registrations, we do not need to sign into the chat. So if you're doing that, you don't need to do that. Okay, it's now time for us to get started. Let's go ahead and we're going to start the presentation. As part of EDD's commitment to accessibility, we have made the closed caption features available for those who require it. To activate these features, navigate to the Zoom toolbar at the bottom of the window and select Live Transcript. From the Live Transcript pop-up menu, please select Subtitles. Once the option is selected, captions should appear along the bottom of the screen. And as noted, we do have two ASL interpreters who are pinned on the screen for you for anybody who requires that. I also want to point out that there's two separate POGs for communication during this webinar. One is labeled chat, which we will ask that you use only for your general communications such as technical assistant issues. The second POG is labeled Q&A. This POG has been designated for questions pertaining to the grant that are still outstanding and were not addressed in the webinar presentation and be used throughout this webinar. The general chat is for technical difficulties or help related to the webinar. We'll also use the general chat to provide helpful links throughout the presentation, and we'll let you know when we drop something in there. Before we get into the content of today's meeting, we do have a few housekeeping requests. Due to the format of this presentation and the volume of the attendees, we ask that everybody remain muted to minimize background noise. If you are experiencing any technical difficulties, as I said, you can alert us in typing your information in the chat, and one of our staff will assist you with that issue. As previously stated, please use the Q&A chat only for questions during the webinar that come up. Due to the volume of attendees, no questions submitted in the Q&A POG will be replied to or answered to during the webinar. Once you submit a question in the Q&A chat, please rest assured that we have recorded it and it will be answered in a Q&A document that will be published to the EDD website soon after the webinar. Please note, since the questions will not be responded to, please do not submit your questions multiple times expecting a response. And lastly, this webinar will not be recorded and the slide deck will not be distributed for external use. A summary of today's presentation will be emailed to all registered attendees to review soon after this webinar. Now let's review our agenda for today's informational webinar. We'll begin by introducing some of our team members here at the EDD and the guest speakers. Next, we'll provide some background information and a general overview of the program, what we call the SFP, or the Solicitation for Proposal. Afterwards, we'll have our guest speakers share a partnership funding opportunity for blending and braiding funds for this SFP. Following this overview, we'll dive a bit deeper into the grant application requirements as a whole, and we'll conclude today's webinar by reviewing some questions that we received prior to the deadline of receiving questions to this webinar, and then we'll review some key dates. Let's get started with some introductions. My name is Terza Davis, the lead analyst and main point of contact for the ETPP grant. And also we have members of the GSU who will be assisting with responding to Q&A and providing technical assistance. The SFP administration process is a large undertaking that would not be possible without the collaboration and teamwork of the entire GSU, senior leadership, and project management team here at the EDD. We thank all of you for your attendance today and for your interest in this grant opportunity. Let's dive into the ETPP. At the time, our staff will drop in the solicitation for proposal link to the website of the EDD SFP page for your reference during this webinar if you haven't already downloaded it. The ETPP Program Year 25-26 Solicitation for Proposal, SFP, is a strategic initiative designed to expand access to high-quality, career-connected learning opportunities for Californians who face significant barriers to employment. Building on the lessons learned from prior investments, leveraging other state investments, aligning with the governor's priorities, and informed by stakeholders' feedback, the Program Year 25-26 ETPP aims to train and place individuals in target populations into jobs and career pathways leading to family self-sufficiency and strengthen regional workforce ecosystems through targeted investments and collaborations in education, training, and supportive services. Keeping with this strong alignment, the state, through the EDD and the Labor Workforce Development Agency, WIOA Title I Governor's Discretionary Initiatives, has invested over a total of $92 million in SFPs from Program Year 22 to Program Year 25, as depicted on the slide. Therefore, the ETPP SFP was built on the key lessons and innovative practices found in the framework associated with the technical assistance provided in the program findings for all the programs listed on the screen. Specifically, the ELL, Integrated Education and Training Developmental Evaluation administered in Program Year 22-23 confirmed promising practices across education, training, and employment domains. Also, the ETPP SFP was developed to align with the California Master Plan for Career Education, which will adequately prepare students for the workforce of tomorrow, including career paths that do not require college, and the Unified Strategic Workforce Development Plan from 2024 to 2027, which we call the State Plan, which is developed to help connect California workers to jobs and promote sustainable growth of the state's economy. We're going to link both of these plans as referenced on page 1 of the SFP and recommended to all of you to utilize as a reference when designing your projects. Therefore, the GSU will drop the PDFs in the chat for your reference at this time. Keeping in mind the background and the purpose of the ETPP Program Year 25-26 funding opportunity through this SFP, it is to we attempt to solicit proposals from project operators with the resources, experience, and ability to implement projects that advance workforce strategies and serve populations facing significant barriers. Proposals should integrate cohort-based training with robust supportive services and strong employer partnerships that drive training for specific in-demand jobs. In order to achieve the grant's purpose, the ETPP seeks proposals that employ strategies that will expand access to high-quality, career-connected learning opportunities for California's English language learners, justice-involved individuals, and opportunity young adults and veterans who face barriers to employment. As stated earlier, this grant aims to train and place individuals from the target population into job and career pathways. The intent is to strengthen regional workforce ecosystems through targeted investments and collaboration in education, training, and supportive services. Therefore, these funds are critical to increasing equity and building individual and family self-sufficiency. The grant project should focus on industry sectors that provide accessible, quality jobs for the target populations with clear pathways to career advancement and economic mobility. These sectors should offer entry-level opportunities that lead to sustainable employment and wages that support family self-sufficiency. Chosen sectors should align with regional labor market demand and provide meaningful opportunities for individuals facing barriers to employment. Projects will prepare participants for success in these sectors through targeted training, supportive services, and employer engagement that leads to job placement and long-term career growth. Applicants should support their sector selection with relevant labor market data and evidence of job availability, wage potential, and advancement opportunities. When selecting the industry sector of focus, applicants should address the regional economic context by describing economic strengths, projected job growth, workforce needs, and regional labor market demand, and the employment and career advancement potential of the sectors that it offers for the target populations. The project design should support specific and measurable outcomes that increase access to quality jobs for the grant target populations. These outcomes are demonstrated by placement into jobs that meet the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or MIT, living wage for the local area, and jobs with clear and accessible pathways to living wage jobs. To achieve these outcomes, project design should first develop strong partnerships with regional partners, including local boards, community colleges, employers, and community-based organizations that sustain sector-based programs that provide pathways to economic mobility. And secondly, develop or identify innovative, replicable, and scalable strategies to support target populations. These should include cohort-based training with robust supportive services, provided with a trauma-informed lens, and demonstrated employer and community partnerships. The ETPP will prioritize funding for projects that demonstrate strong alignment with California's strategic workforce and education goals, particularly those outlined in the California Master Plan for Career Education 2025 that we referenced in the previous slide, and we have dropped the PDF into the chat for you. Successful applicants will demonstrate how their projects will direct existing resources and efforts in new and effective ways to expand access to high-quality, career-connecting learning opportunities for the target populations who face significant barriers to employment outlined in the SFP. Successful proposals will explain how the project will train and place individuals in from the target populations in jobs and career pathways leading to family self-sufficiency. And as we said, strengthen the regional workforce ecosystem through targeted investments and collaboration. This is particularly and importantly done through education, training, and supportive services. So we will ask that you design a project logic model that represents the program activities and intended outcomes, which we'll look at the exhibits in a later portion of this presentation. Designing the career pathways. Therefore, based on this theory of change and goals that were outlined on the previous slide, this fund projects that provide, one, advanced access by prioritizing services for populations facing significant barriers to employment. Projects must demonstrate culturally responsive and trauma-informed approaches, as well as inclusive outreach strategies and cohort models for training. Two, the projects will focus on industry sector strategies that provide accessible job opportunities and career pathways for the target population. Three, strengthen education to employment pathways. Align with the K-12 adult education and post-secondary systems to create seamless transitions into employment. Fourth, which are outlined through 3 bullets here. We're going to support stackable credentials and career mobility development, or expand programs that offer those stackable industry recognized credentials that align with the labor market needs. We want to have an emphasis that should be placed on the portable skills, certificates, and career ladders that lead to economic mobility and advancement. Also, we want to integrate workforce learning and employer engagement, which includes meaningful work-based learning opportunities such as apprenticeships, internships, or on-the-job training and job shadowing. Projects should demonstrate strong employer partnerships. And last, foster cross-sector collaboration. Demonstrate robust partnerships across workforce development, education, including education consortium and community colleges, community-based organizations, and employers. Proposals must include letters of commitment and clearly defined roles for each partner. Fourth, leverage and braid resources. Maximize impact through the strategic use of leveraged funds. Demonstrated effective blending and braiding and sequencing of resources will be prioritized. And last, we want you to use data to drive outcomes. Applicants must demonstrate the use of evidence-based strategies grounded in research, proven practices, or prior successful implementation. Let's look at the strategies. Strategies focus on innovation, test new approaches, and adopt best practices to equip target populations with essential work readiness skills and training, thereby preparing participants for meaningful employment. Key project strategies, and these are outlined in the SFP, and these are based on, like we said, prior evidence of strategies that are successful in our prior projects targeting these target populations. We want you to use lessons learned from prior investments and other relevant regional initiatives to shape your key strategic approach and serve as the cornerstone of your new program. Setting strategies to focus on specific goals for serving the target populations, including workforce supportive services such as target population outreach and recruitment, career navigation awareness, supportive services, occupational skills training. We want this to lead to employment. Programs should demonstrate current partnership with specific regional employers, including advice or curriculum design, internships, and other work-based learning opportunities, as well as access to job openings and hiring opportunities that offer career mobility. And lastly, case management, supporting individuals with participating in training to address issues with attendance, learning, and skill development, behavioral, work readiness, and including coordination with instructors and other programs and referrals, and other public and private systems and services. Now we want to just review some basic information now that we've got into the detail of it. With this funding and timing and decisions are based on the availability of funds. Estimated amounts and dates are subject to change and not final. We had a large amount of response to this grant, and I just want to reach out to emphasize to everyone, this is only a $16.3 million WIOA Government's Discretionary Fund investment, and it is available through this SFP. So applicants may request awards ranging from $500,000 to $2 million, I apologize. The EDD anticipates that we will fund estimated projects of 8 to 32 awards only. Final awards and participant counts may be adjusted depending on the number of successfully submitted applications. The state expects that the performance period for participating in projects funded under the SFP will be between 18 to 24 months. This period of performance includes all necessary implementations and startup activities. Grant funds will not be available for more than 24 months, and no obligation of funds will be allowed beyond or after the grant period of performance. And any funds not expended for budgeted grant activities during the grant agreement shall be reverted to the state. Let's talk a little bit about eligibility. We have gotten lots of questions and requests for feedback on this. This grant application is open to only the eligible applicants that are on the screen. They include local workforce development areas, local areas or boards, adult education and training providers, community colleges, private nonprofit organizations, labor organizations, tribal organizations, faith-based organizations, public agencies, which are considered local governments, and community-based organizations, or CBOs. For-profit businesses or training providers and individuals are not eligible to apply for this grant. Let's talk a little bit about participants. Eligible applicants must serve participants that are individuals selected through the target populations defined in Section 1E2 of the Target Population section of the SFP, and they must meet the following requirements. Participants must be at least 18 years of age, and participants must meet all eligibility requirements outlined in WIO Title I Adult Program to participate in the ETPP Program Year 25-26 program. All applicants are encouraged to work with the following partners. Regardless of the target populations, the projects will serve, and again, these are recommended, and they may partner with a Title I local area in the service region or regions, a Title III Wagner-Peiser local office in the service area, community colleges, adult schools, and education and training providers that are Bureau of Private Post-Secondary approved and/or on the state's eligibility training provider list, the ETPL, offering certificates for in-demand sectors with living wages and good quality jobs in the service region. And lastly, CBOs with expertise serving target populations. We have some specific recommendations for target populations, such as the first one, veterans. We recommend that you partner with the Title III Wagner-Peiser Local EDD Jobs for Veterans State Grant, or JVSC staff, that's located in the AJCs in your local area. Applicants may also partner with the following training providers when incorporating the integrated education and training strategies: a Title II adult education provider, an IET provider, and a California Adult Education Program, or CAEP, a California Community College that is prioritizing industry sectors based on regional opportunities for high growth, high wage careers, and the Disability Access, Equity, and Inclusion, DAEI, pilot sites, or the DOR AJCC collaborative projects. These specific population partners are outlined on the slide and are on page 7 of the SFP with the links to those projects. Additional partnerships are also outlined in page 8 of the SFP, and there are links to those websites for those partners. We do have some required employer partners within this grant. Applicants must demonstrate strong, sustained partnerships with employers in the target industry sectors and occupations. These partners should be integrated into all phases of the projects, from design to implementation, and include clearly defined roles such as co-designing training curriculum to ensure alignment with current and emerging industry needs, providing work-based learning opportunities such as internships, apprenticeships, job shadowing, and on-the-job training, participating in advisory roles to guide program relevance and responsiveness, offering hiring commitments or letters of intent to employ program graduates, and contributing resources such as equipment, training space, mentorship, or co-investment in program delivery. Preference will be given to proposals that include employers offering family-sustaining wages, benefits, and opportunities for career advancement. Applicants should describe how employer partnerships will support participants' transition into unsubsidized employment and long-term career mobility. In addition to the detailed narrative description of partners included in these projects, applicants will also utilize Exhibit J and partnership and commitment letters to fully illustrate how the inclusion of partners will lead to success in their project. We'll discuss that in more detail in the application section. Now that we've reviewed the partnership requirements, we do note that the applicants may partner with or be recipients of the California Adult Education Program, or CAEP, funding. The California Community College Chandler's Office manages the CAEP technical and functional systems and administers the CAEP in partnership with the California Department of Education. The CAEP provides roughly $670 million in state allocations to the 400-plus community college and adult school members of its 71 consortium throughout the state. This ETPP grant funding can intersect with CAEP funding in programs that are prioritizing industry sectors based on regional opportunities with high growth, high careers, providing a braided funding opportunity. Furthermore, as of 2023, the Chandler's Office CAEP team has been administering a limited time funding program available to CAEP Adult Education Consortium, the English Language Learner Healthcare Pathways Program, or ELL Healthcare Pathways Program. So in addition to some entrance of programs supported by the CAEP, ETPP grant funds can also be braided with the adult education funding for the ELL Healthcare Pathways programs, as outlined in the SFP. So we wanted to take a moment to provide some additional information about the ELL Healthcare Pathways Program with a guest from the California Community College Chandler's Office, Workforce and Economic Development Division. I'm happy to introduce Sanjay Mehta, Program Analyst with the California Adult Education Program at the Chancellor's Office. Welcome, Sanjay.
Thank you, Teresa. Appreciate the warm welcome. The program we are introducing today is the ELL Healthcare Pathways Program. Total funds are $130 million over 3 rounds of distribution. The first 2 rounds have been distributed. We are currently on the final round of funding equaling $50 million. The funds were part of a 2022-23 Budget Act under the Governor's Care Economy Workforce Development Package. The program is focused on healthcare vocational pathways for the English language learners and ELL across all levels of English proficiency. The program has been implemented with support from the Chancellor's Office, California Department of Education, Labor and Workforce Development Agency, and finally, the California Health and Human Services. You can see these funds are highly visible. Next slide. Keeping with this theme of investing in California's workforce, California community colleges are prioritizing industry sectors based on regional opportunities for high growth and high wage careers. The ELL Healthcare Pathways Program is investing in CAPE consortia to expand and enhance proven workforce training models and support systems that focus on equity, access, and inclusion, also deeper participation by employers. As you can see, rounds 1 and 2 have been distributed equaling $80 million. Round 3, which is a competitive RFA to be released soon. This will be open to all 71 consortia Further information will be posted on the Chancellor's Office California Adult Education Program webpage under the ELL Healthcare Pathways accordion. Next page. Next slide. Thank you. The main goals, the governor's agenda for the Economic Workforce Development Package is to increase the number of providers, especially in the underserved areas. Also, this will provide additional training for existing care economy providers. Finally, it is to increase diversity and cultural competency in healthcare economy professions statewide. Next slide. ELL's core requirements is supporting existing or new vocational pathways. The following occupations in round 3, as in rounds 1 and 2, are dental, medical, social, and human service assistants. Also includes nursing assistants and with pharmacy and emergency medical technicians. Applicants are not limited by the professions that are outlined and can get approval from the Chancellor's Office as long as it can satisfy demand and wage information and be able to demonstrate viability. Next slide. Finally, ELL healthcare pathways must include an accelerated learning model that will be adopted to accelerate student completion rates. The accelerated learning models can include, but not limited to, are bridge programs, dual and co-enrollment, integrated education and training, and work-based learning. I really appreciate your time and allowing me to introduce the ELL healthcare programs. Thank you very much. I turn it back to you, Teresa.
Thank you so much, Sanjay, for providing the information on the EL healthcare pathways as a good braiding and blending fund information for this grant and to partner with the ETPP. This also opens up additional funding coming soon.
Most certainly.
Let's talk a little bit about the importance of what to think about when you administer this grant. We've gotten lots of questions about, does your organization have the administrative capacity to manage the EDD grant program? So we've received many inquiries from organizations wondering whether they're a good candidate to apply for the EDD grant. So let's break down what they really means and cover the top 3 administrative responsibility applicants should be asking themselves before they apply for this grant. The first item I'd like to highlight is our administrative capacity, particularly as it relates to California CalJobs administration. First, it's essential that your team has both the time and capacity to complete the application process, manage participant enrollment, and ensure timely data entry. These activities are critical for maintaining accurate records and meeting compliance requirements. Second, your organization must be able to request and securely handle personally identifiable information, or PII, such as Social Security numbers. We have established procedures for collecting and transmitting participant data in full compliance with privacy and security standards. Lastly, we ask that your organizations submit required reports promptly to keep documentation current and transparent. This supports oversight, accountability, and program evaluation. Together, these responsibilities uphold the integrity of administrative processes and ensure the accuracy of the participant data. The next item organizations should carefully evaluate is their conflict of interest, or COI. Every organization is required to develop and enforce a written COI policy. This ensures that all staff, board members, and stakeholders understand what constitutes a conflict and how it should be properly managed. Staff and board members must disclose any potential conflict of interest. These disclosures promote transparency and help safeguard the integrity of the program operations and decision-making. Organizations must also implement firewalls and recusal procedures to prevent biased decisions. Anyone with a potential conflict should step back from discussions and decisions where this impartiality could be compromised. In equally, sorry, excuse me. It's equally important to maintain documentation of all disclosures and resolutions. Adequate records demonstrate compliance and accountability, especially during monitoring visits or audits. Ultimately, a strong COI policy protects both the organization and its stakeholders by promoting fairness, transparency, and trust throughout the grant process. The final item I'd like to address is the single audit requirement, a critical process that ensures organizations receiving federal funds are using them responsibly and transparently. Who must comply? Any non-federal entity, including nonprofits, universities, and local governments that expend $1 million or more in federal awards during a fiscal year must undergo a single audit. This threshold was recently increased from $750,000 to account for inflation and reduced administrative burden. The audit must be completed in accordance with 2 CFR Part 200, Subpart F of the Uniform Administrative Requirements, Cost Principles, and Audit Requirements for Federal Awards. And I'll have my staff there drop the link into the chat for everyone so they can reference that. This includes a review of financial statements, an assessment of compliance with federal award terms, an evaluation of internal controls over compliance, and auditors must be are tasked with identifying errors, fraud, and non-compliance. These findings are reported to the appropriate federal agency and may impact future funding decisions. In short, the single audit is not just a regulatory requirement, it is a safeguard for program integrity and public trust. Please note, if awarded, applicants must be required to meet with our project management team here at the EDD, who will review program and regulatory requirements as part of the contracting and orientation process. So I'm going to I want to move to the application process in more detail, but first I want to pause here for a second to give anybody a chance to put any clarifying questions in the Q&A that they might. And remember, we're not responding to those, we're just collecting and compiling them, and we will be putting a question and answer document together that we'll publish to the website soon after this webinar is complete. So now that we've covered the SFP and all the details of it, and again, remind everyone, reviewing the SFP is very, very important. It has all the information. This has been a high level of all that, and this portion will also be a high level. The SFP is your reference material and has detailed instructions on everything we've covered today and through this next section. So let's go over the application requirements. First and foremost is the most important part of applying for these grants. All applicants must have an active account with the Systems of Award Management, or SAMs. Each active SAMs account must be in good standing with no record of disbarment or suspension in order to qualify for this funding. The grant application or certification is done every 12 months. So if you have a SAMS account, you must renew it. So it must be active and in good standing. Be advised that SAMS registration and renewal process can take several weeks to complete. Those that don't have a SAMS account should register today. Additionally, account registration must be renewed every year. If you're already registered, please check your SAM registration after this webinar to verify your status. Because of the length of this process, we do not recommend waiting until the last minute due to registration and renewal. Again, anybody who does not meet these requirements would be automatically disqualified for funding. On the screen are all the required exhibits and attachments. This will make up the application package that is submitted. On the left are all the required exhibits, and on the right are a list of all the required attachments. Two different things. Exhibits are usually templates and canned forms that you'll have to fill out and provide. They are required and they cannot be changed or replicated in a different manner. They must be submitted in their entirety the way they are downloaded into you and completed. The required attachments are possibly are not templates, but they're required things that you do have to attach to the application. And you can see them on the screen. These are the required applications as far as in their format. The blues are everything that needs to be submitted in a Word document, and I'll readdress that in just a moment as far as the red, the PDFs. So let's go back to the attachment. I want to take you through what I call a tour of how you would get the information to apply for this application and look at some of the detailed exhibits and the way to download and get those. So I want to go just like you would. I'm going to have my staff drop into the chat the access to the SFP Workforce Development website, where everybody was given the link to register, and also you'll see the attachments. So I'm going to pretend like I'm doing that. I'm going to click here. And what opens is what we call the landing page for the Workforce Development Solicitation for Proposal page. And we've gotten lots of questions on how do we get information about the grants that you're referring to in the SFP that were administered in previous years and the findings and what those were about. You can also access any solicitation proposal, current and in future, in past. And I'm going to just show you that. You'll see it's addressed in program year. So one of the references was the ELL EIT grant. If we go down, I believe that was submitted in program year 23-24, and it's right here. So if you wanted to see that and review the SFP and the relevant information, you could click on here and see that. So this is a great resource for you when you're referencing information to design and develop your program. But we specifically for this tour want to click into where we would go if we want to apply for this grant. So let's go ahead and get into program year 25-26, and we're going to click on the Employee Training Pathways program. You'll see there's a little introduction to what it is, and this is where you got to when you did your registration link right here. The key that I want you to look at here is that these forms have to be submitted by December 8th, 2025 by 3 p.m. So we need to do the ETPP SFP with forms link to be able to get what we need. So we're going to go ahead and click on there. And you'll see this is the detailed SFP. Everything that you click on here is downloadable with the blue links. So it's important to download them. If you have, I know that we had some questions on browser, like I think with, it was Edge that was having problem accessing this web page. It doesn't matter. If you access this, you can download the files from here and you'll be able to put them onto your computer, and you'll be able to access this SFP through that. So no worries if you, for some reason, have some error in getting into this. Just go ahead and download them and you'll have them so that you can access them. I want to point out that this is a detailed SFP. I'm sure lots of you have reviewed it already. But I want to pay attention to II page, which is the links page for all the documents. I previously on the slide showed you the list of required documents and attachments. They are listed here. And anything with the blue is a template or a form, as I call it, that you have to fill out and submit in your application. You please do not replicate these forms. You do not create your own. You'll be disqualified if you do not submit the exhibits. So it's just real imperative that you do that. So we're just going to click into one of them. I'm not going to do them all. You can go ahead and click them and get them and see what they're about. And we're going to do a brief cursory of some of them here in a few minutes. But I want to click on the one that I think is very important, is the cover signature page. So just for experimental purposes, we're going to go ahead and click on that one. And this is a document that everybody needs to submit. Probably the most important part of it is the top. and the bottom, but the top first. You're going to tell us how much money you want to request, and say you want to do $2 million. Um, 2 million is the max that you can apply for, and it requires a 20% leverage funds. So of the $2 million, you'll need to do the math on what 20% is. You're going to put it in here, and then you're going to put a total of what you want to request, what your total project's going to be, cost of your total project, not what you're requesting, what it's going to cost you to do the project with the leverage funds. So if it's 2 million, what is that? I can't do the math. 400,000, and then so 200 million, 400,000 would be the total project cost. Organizational name, just kind of scrolling down, this is a cursory. Designate contact, signatory. Also, we need to know what type of organization, because we need to determine if you are eligible for this grant. Only the things in the boxes, the organizations in the boxes are eligible. So if you're an other, you will not be able to apply for this grant. So make sure that you check the one that relates to you. If you're more than one, then go ahead and check more than one box. It doesn't matter. They're fillable here. This bar, the tax ID, you'll have to give us your IRS and California tax ID, but the unique entity identifier comes from the SAM registration. That's an alphanumeric 12-digit number, or 12-digit character number, and that needs to be put in here so that we can verify that your SAMS is current. If you do not have that, or you have one and you're not registered, you will, like I said, be disqualified. So it's very important that you do include that. And then last but not least, most important, is this does need to be signed by the authorized signatory authority. And there's a box to do that. Okay, that's just a quick overview of one of the exhibits. Again, we're not going to be reviewing this individually, each of these. So I'm going to close out of this. And then I just want to point out a couple things more in the SFP. There's all the links, as I said. Probably the next thing to note is anything that's referenced within the SFP as far as things that you need to look at or review to design your projects, everything has links in it. So as you can see, that master plan and on page 1 and the California strategic plan are all linked here. So you can, even though we provided them in the chat, the SFP does have the links to all of that. So anything you need to reference is going to be provided to you. I want to scroll down and go to what I think is the most important thing to answer most of the questions we received, and that is Appendix A. And I'm going to scroll down and find it here. I believe it's page 26. Bear with me, I have no arrow up and down, it's just a scroll bar. Okay, I am wrong, it's 27. So the appendices are going to be invaluable to answering most of the questions that we received during before the webinar and probably during this webinar. It's real important you review the SFP and all its appendices. Appendix A is the program package instructions. Say you opened Exhibit F and you're having trouble filling it out. It's very important then to go to the instruction page here that details how to fill that out and how to calculate, like put the totals. Because remember, these are Word documents that have formulas in them that are accessible. So sometimes you have to update the fields. So information on how to do any of that is listed in here. So very important to use your appendices when writing and putting this together. I'm just scrolling down so you can see it. Also, Appendix B will answer all of the allowable activities costs. We've had tons of questions about indirect and direct cost, allowable cost. Everything is outlined here. Yeah, again, you need to make sure your allowable costs are within these confines of the appendices, and there's a C, which is, I believe it's allowable cost matrix. So all of this will be invaluable to understanding and determining what kind of cost you can allocate to the program. And then we have links to all the CFRs, and also you have an administrative cost. Lots of people ask about the 10% administrative. There's a 10% administrative max on this. That's combined with indirect cost and administrative cost. It can't be more than 10%. The CFR is there for you to reference if you don't understand that. And then it allocates and talks about how the different qualifications of that. Internet resources are all outlined. And then last but not least, you're going to have your, you have a logic model sample in here. Anyway, that's all I was going to cover here. So I'm going to click out of here and get us back to the webinar. Oops, don't want to do that. Oh, there we go. Okay, and then just to recap, all the required exhibits are listed on the left, all the attachments on the right, and everything needs to be included in the package. And if you have difficulty filling anything out or providing anything, the information is in the instructions page. Okay, let's move on. We are going to require submission formatting for purposes of you're going to submit an email when you submit your documentations. Or your proposals. So exhibits are going to all be in the original Word document form that you filled them out in. And then all of your partnership letters and attachments that you create yourself or attach are going to be in PDF. So I think there's a requirement within the SFP for an organizational chart. That doesn't have to be anything high level. It can be project related, just your organization to the project, but that is asked for, and that's something you'd create. You're going to PDF it and submit it. So everything in red is going to be submitted in a PDF. Partnership letters is a good one to point out. It can be lengthy. Say you have 12 partners and 12 partnership letters, you will want to PDF that to make it smaller so it's all condensed into one document. Okay, and just some key points on this is in reference to some things that have come across as questions, but also things that we've noticed in submissions that kind of go wrong sometimes. So we want to just cover these in cursor. The cover signature page, this is for key information. It's for your funding request, and that needs to line up with what your budget says you're going to do it in. And it does have to have an authorized signature on there, authority signature on there. So pretty important. The executive summary is limited to 3 pages that we want you to use grammar, proper grammar and sentences, and that this we use to post the awards, use the verbiage to post the awards. So it's important that it's in complete sentences and grammar. And it's limited to 3 pages. We want it real concise. Exhibit A is really probably the most important document of them all and the one that we receive the most questions of. This is the bulk of the application, and this is used to score the proposal. Make sure you answer all the bullets in each of the sections of it. Bullets and boxes can be removed, but we want you to keep the subsections and section titles in there. This has a 15-page limit on it, and we will not repatch the 15 pages if you submit it. And this does not include any org charts, exhibits, and attachments. It's 15 pages of just pure narrative. We do want it in we prefer calligraphy, 12-point font. Aptos is obviously acceptable, but it needs to be a 12-point font. Questions came up about it single spaced. And again, if you remove the boxes and the bullets, you can go ahead and make it a narrative box, narrative document if you need to for space. And here are the criteria just to point out, and this is all outlined in the SFP as well. We evaluate your project narrative in 5 sections. We want to know about your advanced access to employment and training pathways as outlined in the key strategies. We want to make sure everything lines up with that. We want to know about your project plan and the strength to education to employment pathways. Performance goals, there's a performance goal exhibit that you'll be filling out, and then you'll be narratively telling us about that, how you're going to implement that. Partnerships and leveraged resources are pretty important to this. As you can see, the more partners, the better, and priority will be to leverage consistent and high-level partnerships and leveraged resources for this, which is 20 points. Statement of capability is 15, and then budget narrative on 10, just to give you an idea of how this, it will be evaluated. Some key points about partnership letters and commitment letters. These two are kind of different. Partnership agreement and letters, you need one for each partner listed in your proposal. And in Exhibit J, you're going to list all your partners and the leverage resources information and all that. So it needs to line up with what your commitment letters or your partnership letters say. So there's bullet point list in the SFP and what those should include. But again, there's some high level information about the partnership letters. But again, you need to make sure that you provide partnership agreement letters that you have in place when the project starts. Commitment, obviously partnership agreement, you can provide more once you contract and your projects are funded. Commitment letters are a little different. Obviously, there's going to be some partnerships there, but this is more for if you have somebody that's leveraging resources, cash or in-kind contributions to the project. Even if the primary applicant is one of the contributors, they do have to put a commitment letter in there. So say you're workforce board and you apply for this and you're funding them, you're matching or contributing the leverage resource amounts in cash or in kind, you do have to provide the letter giving us those amounts. And if you have more than one leverage fund organization, you would provide more than one letter as well for each. That is it. We've reviewed all the most critical information. Wow, that's a lot to take in. But let's review key dates, which I think are probably the most important part and probably the meat and potatoes of this. We are accepting notice of intents up until November 20th. We wanted to provide some time for you to go through this webinar, review the SFP. Notice of intents are not required, but we're recommending it. And we really do, it helps us let us know how many are going to apply. It gives us an idea of, how many we're going to fund and kind of gets us prepared for that. But it doesn't bind anyone. So if you want to recall your notice of intent, you're more than welcome to do that. Even though you put in a notice of intent, you do not have to apply. But if you could give us an idea of what you're going to do by the 20th of November, that by noon, that would be great. The proposals is a drop dead deadline, and there is no exceptions to this. I'll make it and state it very clear. If you do not meet this deadline, you will be automatically disqualified. So proposals are due December 8th. We've allowed a little bit of time for the holidays in here, and that's by 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Estimated evaluation and scoring. These three at the bottom of the screen are estimated dates. These can change based on, changes in something that might happen in a timing with staff and things like that. So estimated evaluation is going to be December 15th through the 19th. We estimate award announcements sometime in February of 2006. And we estimate to start this project, or hope to, if we get everything done, by April 1st of 2026. Notice of intent, just want to, we've gotten lots of questions on this. How do I provide a notice of intent? It's pretty simple. You're just going to present an email that is subject, can be notice of intent for ET PP 25 program year 25-26 to the WSB SFP 3 at edd.ca.gov. This is the mailbox you've been using. If you've been sending in questions throughout the process, it will continue to be the one you'll use throughout the application process. So we're going to drop that into the chat just so it reminds everyone this will be the mailbox we will be using. And all we need is just something simply as this email informs EDD that your organization, name of your organization is applying. We'd love to know what your project's going to, target. That little information or synopsis of that is great, but we don't need it. We just need to know who your organization is, and we need contact information. So if you could put that in your salutation, that's all we need. And again, that's November 20th by noon Pacific time. Here's again the submission information. Proposals are due December 8th, 2025 by 3 p.m. Pacific time. And again, you're going to submit it. And again, it's a large document. You can zip it. You can put it into one document, zip it up with all the required docs and PDFs. And you can submit it to WSB SFP3 at edd.ca.gov. One electronic submission is to be submitted, including the cover signature page and all letters in PDF format, all required exhibits in MSS Word format. And again, you would just address it to us and give us that information. You will get a return receipt once you submit your application to us. That's it. We can breathe. Okay, so what I want to do next is go over give you an opportunity to put any clarifying questions into the chat, the Q&A chat, POG, if you want to. And here, through this section, I'm just going to go over I promised we had a deadline for submitting questions, so we did receive large amounts of questions. But we received about 20 that I want to review that we really didn't cover in the SFP presentation today. So we want to make sure that we cover those with you. And then, of course, we're going to be compiling any corresponding questions. So feel free to put any information in there that we don't cover after we finish the webinar today. So let's go ahead and do this. And I'm going to go ahead with the first question. Could you please clarify if for-profit training providers are eligible to apply for the grant, or nonprofit, or only nonprofit training providers? Well, we've already said about the profit. So the answer to that is for-profit businesses are not eligible for this funding opportunity. So this would include for-profit training providers. This actually is referenced in page 6 of the SFP if you wanted to refer to it. Question 2, is the leverage considered part of the requested amount? Say we request $2 million, 1.6 received is $400,000 leveraged. Or in addition to the requested amount, 200 million requested equals 2 million received and 400,000 leveraged. Pretty detailed question, but applicants are required to demonstrate a minimum of a 20% leveraged funds in relation to the total requested. So if 2 million is being requested, at least 400,000 must be leveraged. If awarded, the applicant would receive 2 million and have a total project cost of 2.4 million. Is a K-12 school district eligible to apply? Yes, a K-12 school district can apply. Please note, though, that submitted proposals must aim to serve the target population that would be considered opportunity young adult, and those are aged out at 18. We want those to be 18 to 28. So they still, even though if they were in K-12, they would have to be adults for this program to be participants in this program. It is permissible for the proposal narrative to exceed the specific page limit. The proposal narrative has a 15-page limit, and again, remember that's excluding all exhibits and attachments. So that is a limit for 15, and we would not score, or it's going to decrease your score if you go over 15, because say your budget's in page 17, if we don't have a budget, we can't review it. A budget narrative, we can't review it. So it's going to probably affect your score on your evaluation if you go over the limit of 15 pages. Is it permitted for an organization headquartered outside of California with sites in California to be awarded this grant? Yeah, an organization that is headquartered outside of California is eligible as long as it follows California state requirements and has offices located in California, and of course would only be able to serve participants in California. Please provide more detail about the 3-digit initialism. This is required for submissions for the file pass that you'll be submitting your documents through. We have a large amount of applications that we received, and we have to have some kind of systematic filing system. So most people who have applied prior to EDD grants would have a CalJobs initialism 3-digit code that is assigned to them. So this is really only for the organizations that already have that. But if you've never applied and do not have a CalJobs initialism, then we just want you to create one, 3 digits for whatever, ABC, that's the name of your organization, you can create a 3-digit Angelism. You will be assigned a CalJobs Angelism if you're funded and contracted. So you will have that in the future if you do receive this grant. This is on page 18 and 19 of the SFP if you want to reference that. Specifically, the Notice of Availability of Funds for this program provides required email subject lines for the application and any submitted questions. Again, there you see that 3-digit Angelism. Just to confirm, the SFP talks about there's a typo within one of those submission examples. I just want to point that out to everybody. And I don't have the page. Yeah, I do have the page number. It's page 19. This should, and the example should be 2526. It's just a typo, and it is an example. If you put 2425 in your extension, we're not gonna disqualify you. We'll still accept it, but it should have read 2526. Solicitation states projects should build on key lessons and innovative practices identified in the framework associated with the technical assistance provided by the ETPF program and the findings of the ELL. I showed you where you could find the solicitation proposal page, information on those 2 grants. If you need additional information on those, you do have a reference point in the footnote on page 11 and 12. And also there's a detailed strategies list from those findings that you would be asked to include in your projects. And that is on page 11 and 12, I believe. Is someone who is in school but is not working in a low-wage occupation, or has a pattern of intermittent employment considered an OYA? Yeah, yes, of course. However, remember the target population for those ages is 18 to 28. The solicitation provides a definition of veterans, but that then states that they may belong to one or more of the following priority groups specified on the slide. For this project, if you do not fall into one of these additional groups but meet the definition of a veteran, are you eligible? Yeah, of course. Yes, all veterans are eligible for this grant. If a state university is considered submitting a proposal, do they qualify under the adult education and training provider eligibility as sole applicants? Yes. And again, that's referenced on page 6. Our organization has 200 staff, and the organizational chart alone is over 15 pages. Do you want the entire organization represented in the organizational chart, or maybe submit a chart for only the relevant departments? Of course you can. High-level organizational charts is what we want. We don't have to do high-level detail. And again, project relevance for whatever departments supporting that is acceptable. How many quarterly meetings and how many communities of practice meetings, and if what locations should applicants budget for? Locations are to be determined will be determined at the time of when the TA provider provides assistance to it. Applicants should plan, though, for monthly virtual COPs and at least 4 in-person meetings throughout the project term. The application references both the maximum 10% administrative cost in the grant amount and also allows indirect cost in the budget narrative summary. Can you clarify if applicants are able to claim both in their submitted budgets? Applicants may claim both administrative and indirect cost. The combined total of all direct administrative cost and indirect administrative costs cannot exceed the allowable 10%. And there's a reference here, and we're going to drop that link into the chat for this one because there's a CFR that actually defines direct and indirect cost and the provisions of that. So my staff is going to drop that in so you have it. And again, it is in the SFP as well. For those that win the award, how will payment be made? Will there be monthly payments for each enrollee based upon expenses and reimbursements? For awarded grantees under WEO 15% grant, payments will be made on a reimbursable basis. Grantees will be required to submit monthly and quarterly expenditures reports, and reimbursements will be based on allowable cost incurred during the reporting period, supported by the appropriate documentation.
Okay.
There's no heading for the program management billing. This is not simply administrative, but collecting, analyzing, generating, and ensuring accuracy for the information entered into the CalJobs reporting. There is similar work in the preparation of the monthly participant reports submitted in CalJobs. Where can we bill this time? It's a good question, and we've already talked about how important it is to have the capacity. This would be billed in staff salaries section of the budget narrative as a program cost. If a participant qualifies under one target population, say justice involved, are we required to collect and verify eligibility documentation for other populations they may belong to, i.e. OYA, ELL, for reporting purposes, or only for the primary population that they are served in? We would require grantees to collect all and verify eligibility for all populations for eligible cost. So you want to keep track of all of that. And then I think this is the last one. Exhibit F2 states indirect costs dollars as de minimis at 10% of modified total direct costs. Should this be 15? Throughout the grant, this changed in January, so now it is 15. We did a typo and missed that in Exhibit F2. So it is correct throughout the SFP, but there is a typo in Exhibit F, Section J. It should have read 15%. So just to read the answer, though, it stated that recipients do not have a current fiscal negotiated indirect cost rate, including provisional rate, may elect to charge a de minimis rate of up to 15% of modified total direct cost. The recipient and subrecipient is authorized to determine the appropriate rate for up to this limit. Check only if you do not receive more than 35 million annually in direct federal funds and do not have a current. This is all outlined in it's called the indirect cost declaration, which is one of the required attachments. So you'll check the box there and provide whether you're going to use whatever rate you're going to use. And again, resort to the SFP for additional information. That's all I have for prior questions. And again, I'll give you the opportunity to continue to put your questions into the chat if you have the Q&A chat. I keep saying chat, the Q&A pod, if you have additional questions that we haven't reviewed in this webinar. I want to review one more time. Just proposed submission has to be in by December 8th. No cutoff, no exceptions to that, by 3 p.m. Pacific time. And that's going to be submitted to our email. If it doesn't get in there, then we won't receive it. You will receive a receipt once we receive it, and that's going to come from WSBSFP3@eddca.gov. And one electronic submission is to be submitted, including all of the documents for every. And by the way, I didn't mention this, but it's probably a caveat statement to say that we only will receive one application per organization. Key dates again, notice of intent, we would appreciate if you would all do that, and that's November 20th by noon. Proposals are due December 8th. We keep drilling that. And again, our evaluation announcements and project start dates are all estimated dates on the screen. Wow, we went over a lot of stuff. Thank you, ASL. You have been wonderful. Those interpreters were on the rock there. Oops. Oh gosh. Oh no. I just pulled out of it. Oh my gosh. Hang on just a second. Let me stop sharing. Technical difficulties. I knew I would have one. There we go. Sorry about that. I'm going to leave this slide up. for a few minutes, probably 5 to 10. I know there's a large amount of people on this webinar, so I don't want to hold anybody up. If you've got the information you needed, you can certainly exit. Go ahead and put any additional Q&As into the pod if you need to. I'll leave it up. I want to thank everyone for your participation. We look forward to accepting your applications and wish you great luck with this. Thank you. And don't forget the ELL Healthcare Pathways program in the future coming up. And braiding in funds with that, the California adult education programs. Thank you so much. Have a great day, you guys.